Well, the second sprint race of the 2024 season has been completed, and once again, Max Verstappen wins by over 3 seconds. Welcome back to Grid Talk. My name is Sophia. Y'all know me as co hosting Formula Talk, but today I am hosting Grid Talk. Today we are discussing the Miami sprint race and maybe just about sprint qualifying that also took place yesterday. Joining me today, I have Grid Talk co host Owain Medford,
Hello.
and it's just us two today. Before we get into this episode, we must thank our sponsor for this episode, which is BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from MLB, golf, NBA, and the NHL playoff stats. Get the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow from your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchup, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on all the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Also, again, make sure you're following us on our social media channels at Grid Talk UK to stay up to date with this show, and also make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow our YouTube channel. So, starting off from the bottom of the grid, what could have been a good race for McLaren, with Lando having actually the fastest qualifying time in the entire qualifying session yesterday. And with upgrades coming for both of the cars, Lando was clipped by Lance Stroll and ended his race at turn one. His teammate, however, was able to stay in the position he qualifying, finishing P6 for Oscar Piastri. Oh, I mean, it looked like there was nothing else Lando could do. He gave enough space.
Yeah, no, Lando, complete innocent bystander in that. By my analysis, well, no analysis, but by my view of it. Yeah, obviously Hamilton's gone steaming into a gap that's there, as has Alonso, slightly prior to that. And Stroll's turned across the front of Alonso, and who would have somewhere to go, where Hamilton not there, and because of that, obviously, Alonso's got smushed into the middle, and it's all sort of Newton's cradled outwards, and ended Lando's race, which is a real shame to see, honestly. Obviously, no points there. Hopefully, they can get the car fixed. It looked sort of like sitting weird when we saw it on the offboards while he was waiting to be picked up, and then obviously he's picked up. I think he's under. I'm not sure if he's got a penalty for it, for an under investigation at least, maybe a fine. Just because it wasn't too unsafe, I would say, with him getting off the track by re-entering on foot. But hopefully that doesn't affect his race, or if it does, it's a silly thing to lose any positions over. And as you say, Piastri, I mean, unfortunately for him, he didn't sort of look too racy. Clearly, the McLaren is racier on that tire, on the mediums, than they are on the softs. I mean, the softs didn't really seem to work for anyone, but they really didn't work for McLaren. As you say, Norris setting the fastest time in qualifying, but by the times, but only on the medium tire. They obviously couldn't use that, so that'll be interesting for them going into qualifying as well. If they've got any mediums left where they've got free choice, it might be interesting to use that. But Piastri, unfortunately, it didn't seem in the race that he could do anything too much. He didn't seem to make any headway, and that doesn't necessarily bode well. So I think they're going to have to try and put their eggs all in one basket, for qualifying, and try and sort of get track position there. It's because it seems that once you've got DRS, you can't really be overtaken, and they seem relatively fast in a straight line. Obviously Hulkenberg couldn't get anywhere near, was 7 seconds back by the end, but unfortunately for Piastri, he couldn't make any headway either.
I don't think like what's happening with how close he was to Carlos and Daniel. There was no option really. He just was in his own middle ground.
Yeah, I mean, I just sort of reading the gaps, it does look like he was, half a second behind or something like that, which is going to be frustrating if anything, because he's sitting there, almost able to get past Sainz, but obviously Ricardo was shielding Sainz in that way, and maybe in a longer race they'll be able to do something, and I'm just seeing the wrong side of it. But yeah, I think their main issue right now is honestly their soft performance, their performance on the soft tire. It's going to come at the same time of day, so It's not like they can rely on a cooler track temperature or anything like that to try and help them. So maybe they are going to have to sort of do a Mercedes in 2020 sort of thing where eating up the soft tires and actually just go and be faster on the mediums.
Maybe, and as well with Lando finishing, not even finishing the race as well, he had the 100% of the upgrades as well. So that's data potentially lost as well coming into qualifying and also for the race tomorrow. So it's not a great day to be a papaya fan, I think, sometimes, but hopefully Piastri will be able to get some good points, and all depends on what happens in qualifying later on today. Another team that had not the best weekend race is Aston. As mentioned, both of the drivers were hit, actually colliding with each other. Stroll hitting Lando and then Alonso hitting Lewis at turn one. Stroll retiring the car, I think probably the best to prep if there was any issues, because it is such a quick turnaround from the finishing of the sprint race to the qualifying. And obviously Park Ferme is no longer in this time, so that they can do any changes to the car, which I think is a great new structure to how the sprint race weekends have gone. But Alonso replacing the front wing, but pretty much was the last of the finishes before the penalties as well, which we'll be definitely discussing a lot about that in this episode. What do you think Aston can do to look into qualifying? Because both of them were in the top 10. They qualified P7 and P8. So do you think that could be another potential outcome for them for tomorrow's race?
I mean, I think unfortunately we don't know how good they're going to be in the race. Obviously, they didn't. We don't have that much long run data to work off, and what long run data. Yeah, we don't have that much long run data to work off. Obviously, they went out of, Alonso didn't make much headway, so far as we could tell, and finished what 12 seconds behind Ocon. So it's not like it's not like changing the front wing or anything, put the car back to normal and he was able to fly up the road. Clearly that's not the case. 12 seconds over a 19 lap race is not, over 15 laps of real racing is not great. And I think the other thing is that obviously they've got no data from Stroll either. But maybe they just have a very, very quick qualifying car, or quick for them, and we can't really say, whether they're going to go backwards. I mean, I think they would have been on for a fairly good result and would have been a bit feisty and things like that. They might have actually sort of thrown a spanner in the works for maybe the Haas or something to deal with, and that would have maybe changed the outcome. But we really don't know what Aston Martin can do. I have no. I don't think there's any way if he was on the back of the safety car, Alonso would have lost 12 seconds to Ocon on the road. So as far as I can tell, I really don't think they're going to go that much forward.
Yeah, they're very much hit or miss. Like this one weekend, they have a great race weekend, great qualifying, and then look at China. Look at some of the other examples of that. So you just never know with Aston, and with developments coming through. I don't believe they have any developments in Miami, but I think they have some coming up when we get back to the European circuits as well, because those are good kind of indicators of performance of the cars. It'll be interesting to see, but like Alonso, hearing some of the commentator and some of his reactions to especially that turn one incident as well, like there was just not much space. Like Hamilton did say that there was a gap and he went for it, but when you look at it from like the drone shot, there wasn't that much of a space. And again, you don't want to hit your teammate's car as well, because again, think about cost cap, think about what parts are available as well, because Miami is quite far out compared to Shanghai, and then obviously where we're going, Imola next round in 2 weeks time. It's not much area for them to kind of send parts, so we'll see. I mean, like I said, qualifying is starting probably quite soon, so who knows. Maybe Aston will actually be both in the top 10 again for qualifying. Now, a team that we're probably going to be speaking about a lot. One of the drivers pretty much took the entire narrative of the sprint race and for Haas, and it was Kevin Magnussen battling for the bottom of the points with Lewis Hamilton and Yuki Tsunoda. There are a few times where Kevin Magnussen actually looked to be moving under braking and pushing Hamilton off the track. He did receive the black and white flag. He also had 2 to 3 10-second time penalties as well for a lot of the instances as well. Post race, Kevin actually agreed. He said they're all valid. I understood, but could like it is interesting to see. And then obviously Nico getting the points. He's actually been more consistent than Kevin in getting points for this season, which makes it interesting because obviously he is moving to Sauber next season, but could has actually be a good middle team contender for this season.
I really think they are. I think the car is fast. Clearly, Hulkenberg wasn't dropping back into it wasn't dropping back into the battle. He was, he wasn't as fast as Piastri or any of the front running teams, but he also wasn't falling back from them. I think that was maybe helped by what, in my opinion, was very egregious driving from egregiously bad from Magnussen. I don't think that was any of that was done in good faith, and I don't know if this is the time to air my grievances with that, but I think has done Hulkenberg. I want to give full praise. Has done an absolutely great job. The car is very good, and he's made the most out of it. Got a seventh place at 2 points in the sprint. If they can replicate that in the Grand Prix, that's going to be amazing. That's going to be great. And honestly, I think with the battle that they are in, they seem a team reformed compared to where we've seen them in the past. They were almost the laughing stock, and they've absolutely turned that around. Fully shunned that reputation for me in the first few races. Whether that continues will remain to be seen. I mean, they're normally quite quick at the start of the season and fall backwards. But right now they're doing everything right. Whether I like that or not in certain ways with how they're going about it, particularly with their use of their other driver, I think it is a different matter that can be debated separately.
Yeah, I mean, point to point, obviously every point counts. There's the discussions of extending the points even down to P12. That's another kind of episode we can probably discuss later. But yeah, they're definitely not the wooden spoon team for this season, I think. But like you said as well, has starts off quite well, but then does drop off towards the summer break and then towards the end of the season. So who knows? But I think, yeah, they are doing quite well. And Nico obviously confirmed for next season for Sauber. I think that's a great move. I think while he has the record for most race starts without a win or a podium, it's still his consistency getting points, I think, is what is making him get those seats for years to come. Now, a team that even the commentators were very confused on about the performance was Mercedes. Crofty, I think, even said that the Mercedes should be overtaking these teams with ease. And while Lewis was in a lot of battles with Kevin Magnussen and Yuki for the last of points, he technically did finish P8. However, when the safety car came out, they actually came through the pit lane, and apparently Lewis was speeding in the pit lane. Normally, that is a financial penalty and not a time penalty, but for some reason, they have given him a time penalty. So he actually finished P16. And then George, you didn't hear him throughout the race. He was in no man's land, similar as well, where he finished P12, no points. But the pit lane incident, I mean, I've tried to watch clips of it. I've tried to understand what's happened. In the past and historically, it has always been a financial penalty. It's never been a time penalty. So why this change? And Owain, what do you think of that decision? Do you agree or disagree?
I mean, I'm not a fan of a fine as a penalty. I think that doesn't, right. The reason we have these speed limits in the pit lane is to ensure the safety of everyone working within it, whether they be TV, whether they be the other mechanics, whether they be the media or and anyone, and all the marshals, for example, as well. And obviously even the spectators to a certain degree. And I think that we should be penalising safety in the pit lane with time penalties. If that's previous, I have to say I don't know that that's previously been I don't know if that's previously been in a racing context, whether that's been a fine before. I know I know on the game it's a warning if you speed in the pit lane in a practice session or anything like that. But once you're in a competitive session, that becomes a time penalty. If it and as I say, if before it has been a fine and then it's been quickly changed to a time penalty. We have got seemingly more stringent penalties and more draconian penalties this season. We just have to look at Kevin Magnussen with getting multiple strong penalties, even right off the bat for a relatively minor corner cut. Um, I think honestly, if that's the case, then Lewis is going to feel hard done by, to be quite honest, because um, as I say, the penalty system has been more draconian, but it's been limited to sort of time penalties this season, and I think he would have felt that his race has been completely ruined um by the application of the rules, which that's if we go back far enough, that's a sort of wonderfully familiar, isn't it, that one?
I
Um,
wonder what it
but
could be.
yeah, no, I think it's worrying for Mercedes actually is the car pace. I think we have to, yeah, that they would say we change the things we can change, we affect the things we can affect, and there's a certain amount to be said that they wouldn't have had an issue if they were blowing by Magnussen. Obviously they'd have had the 20 seconds, but they wouldn't have had an issue if they were blowing by Magnussen or we saw in what was it, Brazil 2021 in the sprint race there. Hamilton had a grid penalty and managed to absolutely make the best of it by having a rapid engine using good tactics with their use of their resources, um, and and making the best of a bad situation and getting the maximum points out of that. They haven't done that here. They're not fast enough to do that, and they would look inwards and say, well, why are we battling with a Haas? Um, Beyond the Haas being, a top two car or anything like that. So I think it's a poor one for Mercedes, and honestly for Russell, I think just to get onto the speed of Russell, he didn't really seem that impressive either. Whether that was because he was stuck in a DRS train because the Mercedes doesn't have the straight line performance, even with DRS. So let alone if someone's got DRS in front of them, then I think it's a bad time all round for Mercedes, and they're really going through. I think there's some of their darkest days, which we thought were over.
Yeah, I mean, at least in our porpoising, we got to give them some props into that because obviously that is very triggering for Mercedes given the last couple times racing. But yeah, like I said, even the commentators were very confused because this is not what we're expecting, and even looking at how they qualified as well, it was just very not what we're used to, and obviously off the back of China as well, like how they had a quite decent performance as well to go from that to then racing in Miami be pretty much a 180. But crazy. Now, Alpine started the penalties before the race even started. Esteban Ocon actually hit Charles Leclerc when leaving the pit lane, damaging his front wing, which gave him a 10-second time penalty. Because of the safety car that came out, actually, he was able to serve it with damage limitations because obviously the reduced speed. He finished P15. Gasly was just short of the points as well. If it was a normal race, he would have gotten 2 points, which is what Alpine needs because they have not had the best start of the season. What do you think Alpine can do? Because this is not a track suited to them. Like, could we expect a better result tomorrow, or is this kind of the best we're going to see this weekend?
I kind of don't know, to be honest with you, because looking at even including the penalty, if we take some seconds off Ocon, or at least even just take the fact that he outqualified his teammate by 3 positions, and Gasly obviously and Gasly qualified 16th and ended up in ninth. So I think that it's probably helped a lot by what happened at turn one, in the opening, that debacle, and then given the performance of Magnussen and Hamilton, and Alonso going out of the way for him. So that, to be fair, there's three, I'll call that three free positions that he got off the bat of that. So we'll put them back down to 12th. But even so, that's still a fairly decent number of overtakes that he's managed to make. So if he can continue that into the race, I mean, as much as you say that it's not suited, and it's not, and the Alpine is comfortably the worst car in the grid, they seem to be doing well with it. So whether they've just hit onto maybe they've hit onto the setup that you need very, very early, and they may not feel the need to change it too much. I think it's as you say, they need the points. It's currently looking like a good weekend for them. They'll just be ruining the fact that they were just that couple of seconds off. So it's slightly annoying for them. But maybe they've. You know what? I'm not going to say that maybe they've got good things to come because I honestly don't think they do. But um, it's one of those where that I think they've done fairly well given the situation. I just think they need to maybe look where they're going and see who's in the pit lane before they put someone out into it. That's maybe a good idea.
Yeah, because it was kind of like who was to blame. Apparently, they told Ocon to go out, but apparently he went out too slow. Like, it was it the mechanic's fault? Like, even I think the chief engineer was actually on the grid speaking to the staff members as well. So like, that's something you don't want to do before the start of the race as well. Like, talk about the team problems after the race before qualifying, because obviously that's going to be a key one as well for qualifying, making sure like you're taken out because the pit lane is quite narrow and small as well for this track because it is a what's the term, a temporary, it is a temporary circuit anyway because it's around the NFL stadium of the Miami Dolphins, so it is very narrow, very small. Everyone's going to try to go out at the same time as well to do the last kind of final push laps because the track will evolve all the way towards the end of each of the qualifying, so definitely something to look out for is those last couple minutes of each of the qualifying sessions.
I think
No,
it's. Oh,
yeah.
sorry. I was one thing. Sorry, just a one last thing to know. I don't understand. I'm really sorry, but like, I don't understand why they. It's not a competitive session. It like it's sending the
To the
cars to the
grid.
grid. Just don't get a penalty there. Like of all places.
Space it out. Like it, you could see Charles was coming. Like I said, I think Ocon might have started too slow. I think there might have been maybe a gear switch or something, but as well, he could clearly see. Like I don't know, it's a weird one, and of course it had to be Alpine that got it, and of course it had to be Ocon with a time penalty as well. You can see the memes going out all over when that was happening.
Yeah.
Wild. But one team I don't think was actually ever mentioned in the sprint race, keeping their heads down but not getting any points was the Stake Sauber team. Zhou finishing P11, Bottas finishing P14. Um, for a team like Stake, is a clean race sometimes better than taking the risk for points and potentially upsetting and damaging the cars?
I think 100%. I honestly think it's one of those things where they've got to try and pick up other other teams. Pick up the pieces from other teams. I don't think they necessarily need to go, full bore, all out. There's still one seat undecided in that team, so I think there's a certain amount of you don't want to sort of taint your you don't want to sort of block taint your copybook or anything like that by doing a silly move. Um, as they haven't had a particularly good qualifying and they did fairly well in the race, but still, out of the points, even if it were a Grand Prix, only 11th place, and it's I kind of don't see where they go from here. I think they need to be, as you say, safe, obviously, but you don't get anything if you don't take risks. So, uh, I don't I don't know whether they, how much more risk would it take to get them up to a decent position and starting getting into the points, or does it not matter? They don't have to worry about the team survival; it's already guaranteed. So, I really don't know. I don't understand. Yeah, they feel sort of aimless for me, really, right now.
Yeah, they can't really bank on other teams' misfortunes. Like that is not a constant. Like it is becoming slightly a constant, but again, you can't bank on it. And they have been notorious not getting out of the first round of qualifying, and they've just kind of been always at the bottom of the pack now. And with the team, especially with Audi coming involved next in a couple of years time, like it's interesting to see because they've had so much of a different turnaround and both with staffing, both obviously with developments as well. So I don't know, like they're probably my contender for the wooden spoon, like for the season. I think they are just going to keep their head down, but then keep it clean, but not get any points. Like I've said before about not taking the risk. I think they're better off doing that for at least this season, and then come hit the ground running better for the 2025 season. But who knows? Maybe they're going to blow it out of the park from now on. Commentator's curse, I guess. a team I cannot believe I'm talking about so high with their finishes. If it was a normal race, Logan Sargent would have gotten points in one of his three home races. But this is obviously technically his main home race because he is from Florida. Finishing ahead of his teammate Alex Albon, who started from the pit lane for the sprint race. He finished P13. Now, I mean, do you think Logan could get points tomorrow? Is that potentially possible for his main home race? And as well, I'll throw it in, given the rumors that have been kind of circulating around Kimi Antonelli potentially taking his seat as early as Imola, requests about super licenses as well. Like, has he started to kind of push harder, knowing his seat's potentially up for grabs by this junior driver?
I think he was helped by the opening seconds of this Grand Prix. Really, I don't think. I'll be honest with you. I feel mean saying it, but it's how I think about it. I think he was helped a lot by the antics at the start, and yeah, no, I think they'd need everything to go exactly the same way that it did, um, and also to continue to do so for the next two stints after that, probably one or two stints after that. So I think Williams did a fairly decent job. Obviously, the only place they could go was up, starting 19th and 20th, but um it would have been slightly better off had they not had Albon not had that lap time deleted in qualifying. But other than that, I think it's difficult for Williams. I think the track kind of suits them. It's quick, and it's got a lot of fast sweeping corners, not too many slow corners, and obviously a number of straights. Three of which having DRS, and they're fairly long at that. So I think it kind of suits them. So I think they're better placed than they maybe otherwise would be. But I don't think I'm not so I don't really think that they get points in the race where things sort of more normal. He said, getting his words out.
Yeah, I mean, Williams is one of the three teams alongside Alpine and Stake who do not have any points for either of their drivers. So, I mean, it'll be crazy to see if Logan gets points before Alex Albon because Alex has been outperforming. Like I said, this is the first time this season that Logan was actually starting ahead of his teammates before a race of some sort. But yeah, I mean, as well, I'm gonna bring that back about that rumor though as well. What is your take on this Kimi Antonelli replacing Logan Sargent as early as Imola? He's not 18 yet. He turns 18 actually the race weekend of Spa in August, but apparently they've applied for a early advancement similar to because obviously you have to be 18 due to the rules that came in after Max Verstappen for safety. But what's your take on it?
Um, I think there's a lot of. I don't see that being granted, to be honest with you. I think I could understand it if we'd seen Kimi Antonelli in any other form of motorsport. Unfortunately, we've only seen him really in F2, and I have to say, as much as he's been, I know we need to give it the full season because I think Prema has struggled with this generation of car. Sorry, this was a little bit like Formula talk. I think they struggled with this generation of car with the much more ground effect sort of Formula One style machinery, and I don't know how much. I don't know whether I don't know enough to say whether he could outdrive that car particularly well. But we haven't seen too good of a performance out of him. So everyone was ranting and raving. But from a perspective of if you of sort of safety, you have to look at it and go, okay, well, maybe if we'd seen him in another form of motorsport, something like that, we could at least judge whether he's going to be a safe driver, and measured enough to be in Formula One. But if he gets granted, then and he gets put in, then I guess we'll see. I mean that and obviously shows an awful lot of confidence, and I've seen people, people at Williams have seen some data from Prema that I haven't.
Yeah, I mean, also as well, he did test in the W13 for Mercedes at Imola a couple weeks ago and actually kind of blew it out of the park with his timings. But I had to throw in something about Formula Talk and some of the lower series Always a good plug for it. If you want to watch as well, it's on YouTube. Just search Formula Talk as well, and you can listen to the episodes the same way if you listen to podcasting for Grid Talk. Nice little plug there. But I mean, yeah, that one's quite an interesting one. I'm not looking into it more. I think it'll be one season, and then, but I do also think that Logan's seat is still up for grabs. I mean, even I think Alex is committed for 2025 officially, but unofficially. But I do think Logan needs to get at least a couple points in order to keep his seat for the 2025 season. Now, double points for the V Carb RB team. Daniel Ricciardo in an unusual position. This is his first top four finish since Russia 2021. He qualified fourth and he finished fourth, defending really hard against Carlos, pushing the limit, and it paid off. Yuki, as mentioned before, he was battling with Kevin Magnussen and Lewis. Was after the penalties was able to take the last of the scoring points. I mean, we'll start off with Yuki first. That overtake that he did in between, getting in between Kevin Magnussen and Lewis Hamilton, that took a lot of risk and it paid off, and it was great to see.
Yeah, it was absolutely. It was kind of reminiscent of that time that what was it that time Max Verstappen followed Sebastian Vettel through at Monaco, past Bottas, I think it was. Yeah, honestly, yeah. I mean, he took full advantage of the situation. I think that's the thing that annoyed me most about the Magnussen situation. When I was just sitting there going, "You've got a 10 penalty, second penalty, get out the way." I very much was annoyed at the fact that Magnussen was sort of allowed to affect the race by that until obviously it was inconsequential what the other guys could do to his teammate. Yeah, Sonoda, really good job, really good. Like honestly, yeah, he managed a great race and only sort of lost it in the last couple of laps to Hamilton, and so could have got. Yeah, well, you couldn't have got any further positions. Obviously, he then got overtaken by Hamilton, but he got it back. So I think even without that, it would have still been a great performance. I don't think we're calling it a great performance just because he got points. It was a great performance anyway. Ricardo also carry on.
I mean, as well, they did change the chassis and they had a floor upgrade as well for Miami, which I think has made a difference. Even Daniel Ricciardo as well has said this upgrades were the ones that were crucial for them for their development for the rest of the season. But Daniel Ricciardo, I mean, that was crazy to see. I'm so excited. Do you think he will do well for qualifying and for this for the race tomorrow, though?
I mean, I can't see him not doing so. We've got a similar scenario as the last time. A bit more data. It's whether AlphaTauri can. I'm sorry, they're not AlphaTauri, are they anymore? They're VCarb. Whether Minardi can make the best use of the data they've collected over the past couple of days, and make better use of it in applying it to their car to increase the speed of it, compared to the other teams. But it looks like I don't know whether it's a psychological change or whether the car is significantly better for Daniel with this 4 upgrade. Maybe it works a little bit better for him. But yeah, it's like he's back. Obviously the Ferrari is sorry, the Red Bull is faster and the Ferrari is faster. So, but as you say, he did a great job defending against Sainz and took a crucial extra point. And for VCarb, a 6 points total, but 5 points from one driver in one small race is amazing. Honestly, I really hope that they do well with it. And it seems like maybe the psychological difference of maybe a new chassis just has helped Ricciardo there, and I really hope it continues.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's another driver that has had rumors about his seats and his performance as well. So hopefully we can see some better performances now with all these upgrades for the V Carb. But great as well for Yuki getting that last point as well, because he needs points. I mean, both of them do need points, but as well, I think there is a lot of pressure as well onto Yuki, both of the drivers, let's be honest, for the seats. So it'll be quite interesting to see. I'm expecting maybe not as good as today. I think they're qualifying. I think definitely out like getting into Q2, I think is a given for both of the drivers. But then I don't know after that really. but we'll see. Second from the top, with both drivers finishing in the top five, Charles Leclerc P2, Carlos Sainz unable to overtake, Daniel Ricciardo finished P5. There were some good attempts for Carlos, but nothing seemed to stick. With a few times he was just short of a launch to take P4. And for Charles as well, Owen, it looked like he was minding his own business. Like he did not have any battles or any issues. Pretty much similar to some of the other drivers on the grid as well, just keeping the head down and getting the crucial points for the constructors championship battle.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was trying to attack Max Verstappen there, but clearly sort of couldn't. He just couldn't get near him. I mean, but Max made a masterful restart, so I think I don't think Leclerc could have actually done much about that. I think the way that the track is obviously, and where you can launch off that final corner means that he had point 0.6 of a gap. Just going over the line, and then it managed to extend that to without DRS. And I think you need DRS clearly to, particularly against the Red Bull, to even hope to challenge it. So I think there was a massive issue there. I don't think but he managed to continue to push the advantage he had. He just drove his own race, drove as quickly as possible. And with Perez stuck behind Ricciardo for at least a little while, it just opened the gap out to the point where Perez in the Red Bull couldn't get so close to Leclerc. Sainz obviously, again has sort of a bit of an issue. He was trying, but I think, with the way that the corners are in Miami, you have to, it's not a slower braking zone, a slower minimum speed of the corners that you're going into as you think. So there's not really that ability to kind of get past, and the switchback isn't as powerful. If you try and if you're trying to cut back on someone, the switchback doesn't really work as well as you maybe would like. So I think that maybe is what blunted Sainz's progress, and maybe the Ferrari isn't as good just following cars as it is in clear air. I didn't see maybe people going as further forward as they otherwise would if they'd had a pit stop to play with. So. Hopefully that benefits Ferrari, but otherwise it's a good performance, but it's not a great performance out of both of their drivers.
Yeah, it's kind of what we're expecting from the Ferrari from the season. I mean, having clear air is pretty powerful, especially with a short and narrow track as well, especially as well with the long straights that Miami has with the DRS as well. You do not want to be stuck behind a car with dirty air as well, because it does make a whole lot of a difference in the performance, especially the ability to overtake and use the power. And finally, as always, Max keeps his record in Miami, finishing over 3 seconds ahead of Charles Leclerc. Perez had some battles with Daniel Ricciardo at the start, but was able to secure P3 and get even more points to widen the gap in the constructors, with over 40 points ahead of them for Ferrari. And then for Perez in particular as well, an 8-point gap from himself to Charles. Should we expect anything different for tomorrow's race? I'm gonna say no. I think it's becoming the norm now. I think it will be a Max win, and hopefully a Perez maybe does well, and there'll be a Red Bull 1-2. But Max winning has been kind of the constant of the season so far.
Yeah, I mean, even slightly ominously, that he said that the rear tire is just with the balance check that we saw right towards the end, very clearly thinking about the race tomorrow, and maybe the setup that they put onto it. Max was reporting that the rears were going away and were very bad, just like in quali. So, I mean, that's worrying if you're anyone else. So, that they could still improve, and very clearly the performance ceiling of the Red Bull is an awful lot higher than it is in the other cars. So get that under control, and who knows where they'd be. I mean, I can even see a scenario where Red Bull would almost be willing to not sacrifice, but very much build a race car with their setup that they the changing setup that they'll be able to do in the couple of hours that we've got, and then as much as they might, they won't like it, but the drivers will obviously may qualify a little bit lower down or closer to the field, let's be honest, and could just press their advantage in the race if they try to find a way to support that rear tire a little bit more, and and do that. But otherwise, I don't see anything else happening. Like, let's be honest, it looks like it's just going to be a McLaren one. Sorry, not McLaren, a Verstappen 1-2.
Almost had me there. I would love that.
It's
Lando's first win in Miami. Yes.
can you? I mean, I'd take it. I'd absolutely take it. But I don't see anything else other than Red Bull just having an amazing weekend. I mean, they're very clearly out front and they're sticking there with it. So, um, yeah, unfortunately for everyone else, it seems to be the Red Bull show.
Oh, definitely very much the Red Bull show. I mean, qualifyings as well. I've kind of done some look into some of the data as well. Like Max does probably about 2 to 3 pushes, but he never, especially for Q2, he doesn't fully push. And then obviously when it because it's a free tire allocations now as well for qualifying, it's a little bit better. But when it comes into Q3, he doesn't need to push as hard as what he's done in Q2, which is what drivers are kind of doing the opposite more than anything else. They're kind of making sure that they're sticking Q2 and then pushing for Q3. Max is kind of doing a 180 and kind of reversing it and still gets pole. That's the thing as well. His strategy is completely different compared to all the other drivers. But yeah, qualifying starting later on tonight. Got a late race on Sunday. But yeah, it's probably wrapped up as well. I mean, his points difference anyway to Checo as well is quite high after 5 rounds, 5.5 rounds, if you include today's sprint race points. But who knows? Maybe they might drop off and do a Ferrari in the summer. I doubt it. But one can only hope. But yeah, that is the sprint race review. But before we finish as well, obviously the structure of sprint races have changed this new season. Now we've done 2 sprint races. Owen, what is your take? I prefer this layout a lot better compared to what we had before, which was the double qualifying Parc Ferme and then a double race. Now it's a qualifying a race, a qualifying a race with Parc Ferme open after the sprint race and before qualifying.
Yeah, I prefer it. I like that there's the ability for teams to sort of take the day. I kind of said before that I think there's the ability for teams to sort of press their advantage, but it doesn't seem that's happening because it seems a lot of teams are coming up, rocking up on Friday with maybe setups that aren't so perfect, and they'd maybe hone them over 3 practice sessions. Whereas now they've got, if they haven't got it right, they at least have the ability over a simulation qualifying session in the right time of the day and and a race as well, not but unfortunately not in the right kind of the day. Yeah, so I like that they at least have the ability um to kind of, yeah, they at least have the ability to use that information. And it feels like there's a bit of jeopardy with the way that, obviously you can crash out and not have any data to do that and also be out of qualifying. But I don't think in the schedule that we have, other than putting the sprint race right, on Friday morning, that we'd have any other way of doing that. So, I think it's maybe the best of a situation in the scheduling that I don't particularly like, but it's I think it's the best of a bad bunch in that way. So I think it's all right. I'm glad that we at least have the ability to not lock into a setup from the sprint qualifying. I think that's a welcome change.
Definitely, especially because it's only one free practice. I would like a reverse grid, but I know that probably will never happen. I think it'll make it so much more interesting for the sprint races, but do a single qualifying and reverse grid. But yeah, very unlikely for it. But who knows? So, as mentioned as well, qualifying is taking place in about an hour and a half's time. But before we wrap up with this episode, Owain, what is your predictions for tomorrow's race? Throwing you on the spot.
I mean, let's be honest, it's gonna be Max Verstappen and Max Verstappen, and I'm still going to go with Perez to become. I'm imagining Max Verstappen's going to get a pole, and then from the race, I'm imagining he's going to get the win too. I'll go with Perez to take second place, and I think in third. You know what? I'm going to go. I think Daniel Ricciardo is honestly having a great time, like doing great. So I think I'm going to go. It's slightly bold, but I'm going to go with Daniel Ricciardo getting third.
Interesting. It'll be a whole Red Bull style podium then. Quite interesting. But I think Max will win. I think she'll also take P2 and Perez P3. So pretty much the same layout results as the sprint race that took place. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. Grid Talk is available on YouTube where episodes are recorded live, as well as Amazon Fire, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Verbal, and Pocket Casts. Just search Formula One Grid Talk for our back catalog of shows with the previews and reactions to race results. Please consider supporting the channel on Patreon so we can get mics, lights, and better recording equipment. And again, make sure you are subscribed so you're the first to know when each new episode is released. Thank you, Owain, for joining me today.
No problem.
And we'll be back soon with plenty more F1 content. Thank you very much for listening to the Grid Talk podcast presented by Bet Online. Goodbye.